So today's parenting questions, the first one is my son laughs when someone gets hurt or when he's been told off. Is he being unkind or is something else going on? So sometimes laughing isn't always about amusement. It really isn't. It's just sometimes people feel embarrassed. Um, Sometimes it's releasing of anxiety, and sometimes it's just sort of like an emotional overload. And so, some people will shout, some people will cry, some people will shut down, some people will walk away. Um, Everybody has a different way of handling their emotions. And so this is just another way of handling it. I mean, I even knew a woman who used to laugh when she was sad. So instead of crying, she would actually laugh. It was quite weird to see because she would laugh and there would be tears and she was sad, but she wasn't crying. It was the weirdest thing. But yeah, so what I would do is that I would just treat it as if you would treat anything else. Because usually children, if you tell them off, they kind of get sulky or they get angry or, they're just quiet and they give you that look. So just think about it in any of those terms and just deal with it in the same way that you would deal with it if he was expressing his feelings and his emotions in one of those ways versus laughing. So try not to take it personally. So if he's laughing when he's being told off, you might think that it's disrespectful, or when he's laughing when somebody else gets hurt, that he's being unkind, but it's not. And in all honesty, I have to admit that when somebody falls, like not falls, hurts himself badly, like trips, or sometimes does fall down, like an adult, I laugh. I just do. I don't know why. I find it absolutely hilarious, but it's not even. But then I laugh at myself as well when that happens. So I'm not sure why I do it. I really don't know why I do it. I think it's just something that I've always had when I was a child. I can't ever remember laughing at somebody else when they fell when I was a child, but as an adult, I do. I laugh. It's terrible. Um, but I think it might be a little bit of a nervous thing, but it also is because the person looks funny. So it's not me being unkind because I'll like burst out laughing and then I'll go, "Oh, are you okay? Are you all right?" But it's the laughter is initially about because it looks funny when the person falls or trips or something like that. So don't take it personally and don't think it's personal that they're being unkind. It's just like this reaction that you have, and we can't always explain it. Okay. The second one is my son suddenly refuses to join in with activities he used to love. He says he's just not good enough. How do I rebuild his confidence? So, confidence isn't something that we usually lose overnight, but how it kind of gets suppressed in a way, it's often replaced by like a fear of failure or a comparison. It's like when we want to try and be perfect and we don't want to disappoint. So what I would do in that those circumstances is that to rebuild his confidence um, is to start pointing out all the good things that he is good at. And you can also ask him, why doesn't he want to join in anymore? Would he like you to teach him and show him how to do that? Because often it's just a case of where, um, so say for instance, and I mean, this was an adult versus a child story, which I thought was a bit of an immature response. But I remember my son being about 7 years old and he was being taught how to play chess. And then he became better than the person who was teaching him chess. And then that person didn't want to play with him anymore because he was a bit of a sore loser. And I think it's quite important to teach your son that it's okay to lose, first of all, but there is something that you can do about it. And what you can do about it is to teach him the game. And if you can't teach him the game, find him somebody that will teach him or the activity. You can also maybe find like a YouTube video about it. I know that some people are, they don't always want their kids to be on YouTube, but I think it's quite nice if you find something that teaches them and you can sit with them and show them and just boost his confidence like that a lot. And then also tell him stories of how certain athletes were just terrible at certain sports and certain people were terrible at certain activities, but it took lots and lots of practice. And so practice helps you to build your confidence and then you can get better at it. But nobody starts off being good at anything. It simply means you have to practice. And so if he really, really likes the activity and he really enjoys it, he just needs to set some time aside to practice it. But if he doesn't really enjoy it anymore, then fair enough, he doesn't have to continue with that. But he's going to learn to, or you're going to help him to boost his confidence just by showing him that, telling him the stories of other people who got better at what they did, and just showing him how he too can practice and learn how to get better at it, but also to assure him that it's not weakness in failing, or it's not weakness in losing or not being as great at an activity, but it's all about having fun. So good sportsmanship. So there we go. Um, Next one. My child becomes very bossy when playing with other children and struggles if they don't get their own way. What's really behind this behavior? Okay, so there could be two things going on here because bossiness is often like a child's attempt to create safety and predictability. So it's not really about um, trying to take over. But, when children feel anxious, they feel out of control, then they try and control what is going on. And this usually happens, especially with children who have felt out of control in a situation before. And sometimes it can be something really ridiculously small. I remember working with this one teenager once, and she was quite rebellious and she hated being controlled and she was always trying to be in control. And it all came down to one little incident when she was a little girl. Her parents were organizing this family photo shoot, and she didn't want to wear this dress that her mom had picked out for her, and her mom forced her to wear that dress. And in her little mind, she made up, I'm never going to be out of control again, because she absolutely hated it. So she had to then be in control of everything. So sometimes it comes down to a situation like that. And I think it's very important for children to have a form of control of their own environment. So if this is coming from your child feeling out of control or anxious about not feeling in control, what you can do is you can give her control in an area of her life. And the easiest place to start is if she has her own bedroom, she can have control of her bedroom, what it looks like, tidying it up, moving things around. You can even do things like, which I did with my daughter, which was quite out there, but I mean, it was just wonderful. She's an artist, and I said to her, even she can just paint on that one wall, because she used to paint everywhere. And I was like, no, keep it in your area. And I said, there's a wall, you can paint on it as much as you like. And she loved it, and her friends would come in and they would draw on the wall and they would paint on the wall. Because you know what? Before we moved out, all I had to do is repaint over the wall. But it gave her that sense of control. So you can do this with children of any age. So it can just be, and if they don't have, if she doesn't have a room of her own, give her a little space that she can do with what she likes when she likes. And I know it sounds scary, especially for people who are like their houses and the whole house to be neat and organized, but it's giving your child that sense of control over something in their life, because children don't have control over anything. Think about it. You in charge, the school's in charge, the teachers are in charge. You decide when they can go out, when they can play, who they can play with, what they can eat, when they can eat, and how much they can eat. Children are just controlled from morning to night. And so a lot of other symptoms come up when children don't feel in control. So you can give her that sort of control. And then the other thing is, if your child is older, if you're listening to this, a wonderful way of also giving children a bit of control of their lives is to have a yes day, which you have some boundaries in. There was a fabulous movie called The Yes Day, and I do this with my grandchildren. And I remember my one grandson used to love riding a bus, absolutely loves riding on a bus or a train or a boat or anything that's transport related. And he must have been about 4 or 5 years old. And I said to him, right, today you decide when we get off the bus, when we get on the next bus. And he literally did. And that's still one of his absolute favorite memories, because I'd say, do you want to go get off here? And he would go, no, we'll get off at the next one. We spent the whole day riding the bus and various trains, and eventually he just fell asleep on the way home. But it gave him that sense of control. So find a nice, unique way to give your child a little bit of control of their own life, and it's going to go so far. Now, the other thing I said, that it was coming from two places. The second place that this could be coming from is that your child possibly has very strong leadership potential and leadership characteristics, and you don't want to break that, because think about it, one day when they're working, they might be a leader at work, they might be an activist, they might be in politics, whatever, it doesn't matter, a team leader in sport, they might be a captain of a team. But if your child's already representing those bossy qualities, and it usually comes with organizing, you generally know when it's leadership versus something controlling and anxiety is when it's like organizing. Children who've got leadership, they'll just organize the whole place, and they'll walk in and organize a room, and they just think from a leader's perspective. And so you don't want to squash that, but you also want to make them understand that other children might not like it. And sometimes there's other children that also have leadership qualities, and they might butt heads. But try to explain that not every child likes it when she becomes the boss of them. And also the other way around that, you can say, why don't you try and let somebody else be the boss? So you take turns to be the boss, but don't squash it, because it's a really good quality to have. We don't want to squash any of our children's qualities, because they're going to show up in wonderful ways when they're grown ups. So manage it in that way and you can start teaching empathy as well straight away, and say, do you like it if somebody else is the boss the whole time? And she might go, no, I don't like that. And say, but maybe that's what Susie doesn't like it, or maybe Jamie doesn't like it. So why don't you guys rather take turns, and you can each be the boss, and you can each be whatever game it is that they're playing. So I hope that helps. Okay, question number 4. My daughter cries whenever someone else is upset, even people she doesn't know. She seems to carry everyone else's emotions. Is that normal? Okay, so some children are naturally more empathetic than other children. They can feel people's emotions, they can sense people's emotions. And so even watching an advert or watching a cartoon or something upsets them deeply. And it's all about just being really, really sensitive. And you want to protect that sensitivity, but you also don't want to overprotect it, because children like that need to know how to self-soothe, but they also need to know what is her feelings. She needs to know what is her feelings and what are their feelings, and that it's okay to feel them, but not to feel responsible for them. And I think it's quite important that she learns what feelings are, and to be able to label them and validate it. And then as she gets older, you're going to have to teach her to say, what are you feeling? Is this your feeling? What is that feeling? Help her to express that feeling. I did a whole video on sensitive children, so I don't want to repeat everything I said here. I said there in this video. So go and have a look at the questions that I answered with another child who was highly sensitive. There's a book that I recommended that will help you to understand sensitivity. And I think I went into quite a lot of detail there. but your child is obviously very empathetic, and it's all about learning how to manage that so that those feelings of other people don't drag her down. But do go back and watch that answer of that question that I had. I'll see if I can find the number, what episode number it was, and just put the link down below this one so that you can, just for ease of reference. Okay, that's all I have time for today for questions. And if you're a parent that is struggling with your child's emotions or understanding your child's emotions or their behavior and you don't know what's going on and you'd really like a little bit of help and advice on that, you can just submit your question by following the link below this video. And also make sure that you check out my free emotional intelligence course. The link is below this video as well, and that will give you a deeper understanding of their emotions, their feelings, their behavior, as well as your own. Until next time, bye for now. Why does my glasses always do that?